Good day, everyone. This is the second part of our discussions involving using CATs. CATs again mean computer assisted audit tools and techniques. The first part with Miss Pasinio actually discussed about the tools. So now we'll be focusing more on the techniques. By the way, I will be using different sources talking about the same things. Hopefully you will be guided. So we actually have again to focus with the techniques for the audit. So these are grouped into CATs, the techniques 1T to validate the audit. So we have the three test desks. Then I actually have known this as DEX, test DEX, integrated test facility or ITF and parallel simulation. So how does the three differ from each other? If you say test desk or deck, I would say anyhow. So that would actually mean that the data is to be validated by looking into the component or aspect of a system. So we are going to get the data from there and we are going to analyze as auditors. If we say integrated test facility or ITF, this is where we are going to place a simulated or fictional or auditor-made transaction to be placed into the system that is live just to check if ever that particular facility or accounting system is working as intended, effective and efficiently, or efficient rather. So effectively and efficiently. Okay, so that's ITF. From the word integrated, meaning a certain simulated by the auditor, a data or information is placed on that system so that we will check if the system is producing really the output that we are looking into. Now, if we say parallel simulation, we have to prepare two certain systems. One that is used, of course, by the company and one that is used or to be used by the auditor. So these two will be compared as to the results. So we are going to make use of certain data or information. Then we are going to place them into the two systems and check what would be the result afterwards. And we are also going to compare if those that are processed by the systems actually are essentially the same as or materially the same as what we have tested using our auditor made system similar to the client, or it could also be the so-called generalized accounting software that is already a commercially packaged software available in the market, and we can use that for our validation for the audit. Okay, so that's how the three differs. Anyway, allow me to mention about ACL, which stands for Audit Command Language, in which this is a software that is used by auditors, especially from abroad, if not from Philippines, because we are just fond of using in the Philippines Microsoft Excel, which is something that is available and we can just use that also for the analysis. Anyway, for simple analysis, even some, let's just say, much better, or the word is that it's a bit advanced, but not too advanced. That's what I meant about using the formulas from Excel for our analysis. So we can actually make use of ACL for data extraction. We get the information and we analyze. The important thing of this one is that because of the limitations of audit, like the cost and the time, so that's why we do sampling. So we just get like a certain fraction or percentage of the entire population that we think would be the best fit for the audit. So we are going to make use of that for our analysis. But then because of the ACL, when we obtain certain information, for example, from the accounting softwares, we can analyze, scrutinize that information 100%. Thus, we will be able to achieve much reliability in terms of our audits and in terms of the findings that we make. Also, for the case of that, if we are going to examine 100%, so we would be able to eliminate the sampling risk, meaning the risk that because we did not examine the entire 100%, so there would be chances that our conclusion arrived by just examining the sample will not be the same or essentially the same as if we examine the 100% or the entire population. So that's the case there for examining 100%, thereby eliminating sampling risk. However, non-sampling risk, in which that's going to be constituted by the human fatigue and then lapse of judgment and etc. So it's normal for human beings to commit errors. So we cannot eliminate entirely non-sampling risk. Anyway, so that is just an addition. What about CAATs to verify data integrity? So we have data extraction rather and analysis. So as discussed again from ACL audit command language, then fraud detection, how do we detect fraud? And continuous auditing techniques, which means again concept of Kaizen from management accounting subjects. I kept on saying again because that has been discussed already. So if you have been following the contents from this particular channel, so Kaizen is something, a management technique that we keep on saying that is essentially continuous improvement, a never ending cycle of improvement for the business. Okay, so what are the 10 steps to using CAATs anyway? We have to begin always with our plan or plans, our goals and objectives in audit. Then we identify what specific techniques to be used. Then identify which data files are needed for our analysis. Then the format that we need to, for example, generate or obtain in our audit. Then we request files from client in preferred format. So is it in Microsoft Word version or whatnot? So whatever format that we need. Then we are going to place that obtained data from the client into the audit command language for our analysis. Import is going in. Then we now use the techniques to verify the data import process. We perform needed or other CAATs just to be able to satisfy ourselves in the process. In case there will be exceptions to the rule, like beyond what we expect for the materiality range, so we investigate and reconcile. And finally, we document the results in our working papers. Okay, what about the CAATSA techniques to detect fraud? So we can make use of digital analysis. This digital analysis actually, which is now computerized, is based on the so-called Benford's law, in which this law states that if we have naturally occurring numbers, which also mean that numbers do not follow sequence or they are basically random numbers, they have observed that those numbers that would begin with 1 would have the highest frequency of occurring, and so on up to the last digit. So from 1 to 9. So they have observed like number 1 would have the highest chances of occurring or that would appear on random numbers. So that's why we would be able to obtain the expected frequency. So in certain sets of, for example, numbers or amounts of checks, so we'd be able to check if something has been done fraudulently, I would say that, or fraudulently, because supposedly it should have followed the Benford's law. And the Benford's law would have exponential distribution. So again, 1 as the leftmost side would be the highest in percentage. And this requires large sample size though. So especially with big groups of data, so we can make use of this CAT. All right. So that's for our first source. Now let's have another one. So this is just a simple source though. And this focuses with gaps and duplicates. So it can be noticed that there will be some missing items, especially if you are just checking the sample of our certain population that we want to examine. Then CAATs to detect fraud, we just have to take note that fraud and error is different because error is unintentional, but fraud is really an intention to deceive others by providing false information. So what we would like to have here is to detect fraud. In fact, we said using the Benford's law a while ago. Then two special CAATs would be the digital analysis, wherein we mentioned again the Benford's law. Well, for data query models, so there would be certain softwares that, for example, we can actually do the sensitivity analysis. Sensitivity analysis means that if you are going to substitute data on certain model, then you'd be able to generate the desired or intended or whatever output that we can think of. So that's about query, meaning we ask, and then we would be able to get the answer. All right. And then continuous auditing techniques for us to be able to monitor our progress along the way and improve ourselves in the process. Okay, so that's it. Then the final slide or group of slides, we have a review of some outputs and concepts from chapter. So we've said that CAATs with 1T is focused on the technique. So that would, of course, be talking about the data validation techniques. So this is to verify data integrity, and that is what is meant by VDI. Okay, so we have the following techniques. Digital analysis has been mentioned. Okay, so Benford's law also, data query models or DQM. Then other techniques, ACL has been mentioned also. So this is our audit command language in batches. EAM is embedded audit module that is also discussed there. Now for these categories, others have been mentioned. We can just add info. CATs to extract and analyze data. For example, for payroll, we can randomly select number of payroll records, and then we examine each in case there would be discrepancies or anomalies. So that is to extract and analyze the data. Then we can determine and do the analysis in the form of statistics, like we analyze the amount, the date, and the quantity fields from the trans file. Trans file is the source file. Then we stratify, for example, we are going to group them. So certain, for example, payrolls having these particular, let's say, names, so alphabetical order, or certain ranges of names depending on the number of employees and so on. And we are going to get the information or pick some samples from there. Or if we are really going to examine 100%, then at least we would be able to examine 100% of all groups. So that is stratification or to stratify. Example, the records are grouped into 10 equal groups. Then, so much of the animation. We can also do the count. There would be times that we just have to simply count just to check if the data that supposedly we should examine satisfies the actual number, like 10 should be examined, and then when we count it, okay, it's 10. Then this is somewhat like IT stuff, so we can just disregard that. Then verification is also important. For example, data identified as numeric should not contain any alphabetic characters within the field. Of course, numbers are numbers, no alphabets. Then statistical analysis is if we are going to, for example, use the GAS tool or the generally auditing software tool, which is one that enables auditors to perform statistical analysis on a client's data file. Again, this is a package or this is already commercially available package in which it can be bought in the market. Audit expert systems have been discussed a bit by Pasinio, but then just to give a review, this is a software wherein it contains a lot of information to the point it can be considered an expert. And then this is an advantage because this is not just like simple analysis, it would also involve complicated or complex analysis of information. Advantages is that the decision making would be unbiased. We can incorporate multiple experts in the field, and it is constantly available for our analysis. Disadvantages would be, well, we would have the difficulty of eliciting the decision making process and the criteria from the experts. Eliciting meaning we are going to have the establishment of the connection between the criteria, and then because we use the criteria, so what will be the process of the decision making and what decision should we obtain? Then the difficulty in updating, because we have to make sure that whatever updates that we make, they should be, of course, refined and have already been studied and scrutinized before they are going to be added or to be incorporated in the system. Then that would involve much time, much expenses or cost. Then what about if there would be uncertainties in decisions? We cannot avoid the fact that there would be risks and uncertainties involved. Then mechanical adherence to the process, no room for intuition or human reasoning. Yes, this is true because we are using the software. So of course, the processes will be done in computerized manner. So perhaps if we just got the information in one click, it would generate. So we wouldn't have like the human reasoning to be able to explain those items incorporated in the system. So these are the disadvantages. Then 10 steps have been mentioned in using CAATs. Okay, so that's it. And then thank you very much for listening for the second part. Hopefully you learned something from this session. Thank you and God